Okay, so this is a guide on how to run Diablo 3. So, basic rules are that you have to create a new character on screen, like so. You can just use the create button, make anything. The buttons down here are hardcore and seasonal. I usually make it more interesting with hardcore. Um, there are, if you don't know, a selection of classes that you just saw. Basically, you need to show the character creation on a new game for that type of run, and it has to be named live, it has to finish live, and the run is done after Malthael dies and you talk to Tyrael at the end. So right when you click them, split your time, and that's it. This is the list of splits. It's divided into all the bosses because those are the best markers for splitting your time. The bosses, some of them are in the same location every time, some of them aren't, and I can dig into that later. What we're looking at now is a monk that I have for speedrunning, and again, there's two ways you can do it. One way is level 70, which this monk is set up for, and that's a new game plus. The goal for that is mainly a conquest, and that can be viewed here. This conquest doesn't show up every season, but it's called Sprinter to complete the game in under an hour. This particular build is not totally perfect, but it's aimed at managing my resources so I can dash. The two best classes for running this game are Monk and Wizard. Monk is the top. Wizard is a close second, and all the rest of the classes are mediocre. Demon Hunter's alright too, but it has its own drawbacks, and the main drawback is that you can't teleport. So I just mentioned not being able to teleport. Well, what does that mean? Can my monk really teleport? And the answer is yes. So he has an attack called Dashing Strike, and it works the same as the monk's teleport. So what it will allow me to do, and I'll just demo that. So start a game. I can get from point A to point B instantly in a short animation. And the benefit to teleporting is that we can go through objects as long as there's nothing in the way. So what I will do is go to a common area with doors and show you what I mean. So here we see this door is closed, and now it's open. I can basically go through this wall. Done. On the other side. No problem. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the level 70 run. I'm mainly going to be talking about creating new games. So creating a new game is just new game without the plus, as this should read. Damage in this game is far from how it works in Diablo 2 because your skills don't have a specific level. They just selected, and then you have a modifier, which are runes. So with this one, for example, I have Breath of Heaven. Allies healed by Breath of Heaven have their movement speed increased by 30% for 3 seconds. That's fine, it's a group buff. No problem. Or I have Sweeping Wind. Again, no level, just plain skill. And I have it set for resource management. There's a set of active skills, and there's a set of passive skills. These passive things are on all the time, or they have a condition. This one is just for a flat movement speed bonus. This one is for extra cooldown. And you get the idea. So how does damage work? Basically, in this game, your damage is based on your weapon. So the better your weapon, the better your damage, followed by all of your other stats. So if we look at my monk, his weapon is quite strong, so we can see that he's holding a two-hander of ancient quality, noted by the background, and that is his main damage modifier, followed by the rest of his gear, which again I'm not going to touch because we're going to look mainly at new game monks, and I'm just using this one to explain the whole thing. Next thing is maps. They can get pretty interesting. How they work is there's a set of tiles, and it didn't start off this way, but in the game as it exists, they're basically small sections of familiar map that are stitched together in different ways. And what you can do is look at a map and say, okay, well, this tile is going to lead me to a certain place. And I will start in adventure mode, which is just free roam to demonstrate that. Just hopping in. So a good map to demonstrate on would probably be let's go with the Northern Highlands. Okay. This one's pretty set. I know that going north means I'll end up in the sorry about that. This is the Northern Highlands. South of here is the Southern Highlands. There's a path that comes up to here, which is located right here. I can go all the way up, and there will be a staircase from the Northern Highlands that will lead to the hunting grounds, and finally, it will lead me to Liaric's Manor Courtyard. This one is pretty set, so in a speedrun we'll always know kind of where the flow of that map goes, and here's a more random one, which will be the Keep Depths. And yes, these are both places we would visit in a speedrun, so this map gets a little tricky. I'll turn down the sound. There we go. This map can go in any number of directions, but I can already tell from this design that there's going to be nothing there. And I can verify that just by going. Here, these sections of map are the same way. It's usually just straight. I don't need to go anywhere to verify that. And then here is where an exit could be, just based on where the layout is going. Now, this map can go in a full square. It can go all the way around, and it can have an exit in here, or it can be in any of the corners. It can even be back here, and it's really kind of a toss-up on where exactly that is, and a lot of times you just need to have a bit of luck because it's all random. Ah, here's a likely exit. Here we go. Okay, so this is the type of thing I mean. From this particular tile, I was able to see that, okay, I came across here. I know there's no exit coming through, looking at the tiles quickly. When I was further back on the map, I knew there was 2 ways I could go. This one's now likely a dead end. And that offshoot right here is how I knew there was an exit. When I came in and saw this particular thing, that was my clue. So from here I would go on to keep depths level 2. Maps tend to be sort of in their own flavor. They either have a lot of hallways or they're in a big square, but there's always some sort of geometry to it, and there's always a feel to them. Less so than in vanilla, but still very much you can get the sense of where a map is going through clues on just the terrain when you pull up the minimap. And unlike Diablo 2, you cannot move when the minimap is open. So generally I look up at my map a lot. Extending on maps, we're looking at the bosses, as I was mentioning before. There are a few that are in a fixed location. They never move, and you'll always be able to find them just by the waypoint. So on adventure mode, I can show you that in Act 1, the Skeleton King is always going to be here, and it's always going to be a straight route. So I can just go through, no problem. And boom, there he is. No real guesswork involved. And we can just click him and he'll animate, and then there's our boss fight. The more random bosses, and I have to finish this encounter now. Bosses that are harder to find are like the Spider Queen. So she is always in this area, but where she is exactly is a complete mystery. So again, I'll go to that area, staying in adventure mode for now, and show you. Now from here, there could be 2 ways. A path down here, or a path down here. Now, it could go either way, and generally from one area there's a path to another area and then the boss. So if I go down here, coincidentally this is the right way. This is my second area. And where the boss will be is obviously not in this direction, but there will be a set of 4 of these small things to go through, one of which will have an offshoot, and hopefully I can find one to demonstrate. Yeah, no, I know it's not going to be that way. That arrow is not for a boss. Okay, here. This is it. This road is how I know I'm headed to the boss. So I'm just going to keep dashing. And here it is. Spider Queen. I'm not going to go into that encounter, I'm just going to go back to town. But that's an example of a boss that's not in a fixed location. The ones that are Skeleton King, Magda in Act 2, Zoltan Kuhl, Belial, the Siegebreaker Assault Beast, Sadea, Asmodan, Rakanoth is always in the same spot, and Diablo. All the other ones are on maps in the same nature of the Spider Queen, in that basically you're navigating around a very large map that could lead you around the whole thing before you find the boss, or you might find it faster than I did, even just then. There is actually a conquest to fight all of the bosses. It was called Boss Mode, and it's an achievement to beat every boss in about... It was 30 minutes, but there was a 20-minute version. And those boss locations are key to doing something like that. So we got maps, skills, bosses, the splits. I mentioned that the monk or wizard are the fastest. The fastest class in the game is monk. Just by default, he has the shortest animation for his dashing strike over teleport. Otherwise, if you were doing a level 70 run on a wizard, what you would do is go to weapons, find this particular source, and craft a cosmic strand. And again, that's a modifier for teleport, but that is where I will stop with the level 70 stuff. So we went through damage, bosses, splits, what class is the best. As to why the other classes aren't very good, it's because you can't go through walls. So any other class would have the issue of bumping into a door, bumping into a corner, or what have you. And there are a lot of speed bonuses on other classes. So if I look at the list, and I'll move my splits out of the way, my monk has that passive movement bonus, which is very good. I get it early at level 10, and I'll always have that bonus through the entire run. I'll get his dashing strike, and then that will make him even more mobile, whereas the wizard is more reliant on teleport. So generally I'm walking everywhere, and I would need teleport with the wormhole rune, and that will take some time to get, so that's not really a safe choice for a new game. Witch Doctor, Crusader, and Barb all have to run on foot. They don't have any talents in terms of the quality of dashing strike. They can't get through walls. They have to just do it themselves. If you're doing a run on hardcore, it doesn't matter which class you're choosing, particularly on normal, because it's pretty easy anyway. Although Barbarian will get his particular passives to help you out a lot earlier. But Monk, again, is the way to go. So for more mobility, pardon me, Demon Hunter is also a decent choice. The Demon Hunter has an ability called Vault, and one of the skill modifiers for that will allow you to gain movement speed after you vault. That's a passive, I believe. Yeah, that's it. Tactical advantage. So what I'll do is quit talking about skills so vaguely and actually make a Demon Hunter and go into a little more detail. Actually, no, we'll do a Monk. That's better. Let's name it Rip. We'll do Hardcore. So I would create my hero on screen as seen, knowing what I do about damage and everything. I'm going to accept the permanent death, and what I'm going to do is make sure that my quest is in the right place on campaign mode. This is the first one. And that would be more just a habit than anything. And then hit start. The rules say you can start a run on the first click, but I like to do it when the game loads in. It's just a little more consistent for me. So you get in, Takes a second, and then boom, there you go. What I will want to do is get out of this area as fast as I can. I can fight all these things along the way, and it will give me decent experience.
The fallen star has upset the bout.
It fell on the old cathedral. There was only one survivor.
Okay, my game is lagging a little bit. Sorry about that. We have high MS, so my punches aren't landing very well. For doing these types of runs, the name of the game is chaining quests, and by that I mean you want to finish and turn it in as fast as you can, and if possible, go to the next area. There are a few skips you can do. And I'll get to them. So we have our first objective here. We just need to kill these guys. Talk to Leah. And then walk it. Now we're not even level 2 yet. We don't have any skills, but here we just have our Fists of Thunder, and this one is totally fine for what we're doing. We don't need any of the high level stuff because we'll only be around level 30 when we finish. And my timer is going to go a little wild. Pardon the lag again. I'm not sure why it's doing that. There we go. Ah, level 2. So now I have a skill called Dashing Tail Kick. And I've opened up that particular skill category. These ones will unlock later. But this is my left click mouse button, this is my right click, and these are my numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. The default key for potion is Q, but I have bound that to J. Sorry, not J. J is something else. That's totally wrong. It's Q, but I put it on spacebar for accessibility, just on for my own purposes. The thing you'll want to do also in story mode is go to social, I believe it is. Okay, yes, it is this panel. So you want to go here and disable both of these options. What these allow the game to do is, if someone wants to join your game, it'll put it in a list. Just on this side, you may have seen it in the menus, and you'll be able to just click it and enter their game, and at that point the run becomes invalid and you have to reset. Again, these will have to be completely off. The keybinds, I is for inventory, S is for skills, J is for quests. Your follower is not a super instrumental component, although there are 3 of them, and they show up later in the game. The Templar will give you the greatest utility in terms of support because he heals. I don't always use him, so I won't go into much of his skills in particular. I'll just leave that one for another time. Again, we have our skills on our action bar. They have a secondary key as well. And of particular note, I've found Force Move, and what this will allow me to do is, if I'm in a pack of monsters, having Force Move will allow my character to find a path around them. It can be a real lifesaver if you're trying to move forward and you can't. So generally I'll punch a monster, but if I Force Move, you can see he just sort of walked by. And it's a lot easier. As for items, I will just want to pick up whatever I can to help me. And I will want to follow this path. The different types of monsters, this happens to be a unique. And you see he dropped blue pants. So now they go to my inventory and I can auto-equip them with right click. Their stats aren't particularly great. As for the objectives, you'll want to note that this one up here is the main one. This one down here is bonus, and it's not necessary at all to the quest. In any scenario, with any character, I just want to be doing as much damage as I possibly can with what I find. So if I pick up a weapon off the floor, I'll quick inspect it, and there will be a tooltip with a whole bunch of stats. And you can see I leveled up, and some enemies died. In Diablo 3, leveling up releases that burst of energy, which actually does, I believe it's 10,000 weapon damage. And from the mechanics they've added, you generally want a large group to chain off of in order to build what's called a massacre bonus. So I didn't do it there, because there weren't enough enemies. But it's a quick way to get experience multipliers if you were going to go that way. Although in a speedrun, it's not very vital. The main thing you'll see is if you're dashing through a bunch of enemies, your strike will do some damage, and you may get some kills along the way. So she's my main objective, and from here I pick up this weapon, and I'll disregard this zombie, and I'm just going to go back to my hometown. I can check quickly, this does some damage, and I'll have my dual wield. I'm going to talk to Mr. Rumford over here, and I'm going to skip any dialogue that I find, which is another interesting keybind. So there is a key for me to close all open windows under a system. And what that will do is any dialogue boxes that are on screen, it will instantly close it. Like so. That's pressing Q. I go on to the next one. It's done. What I did at Rumford was, if there's a narrative at the bottom, I can hit escape and skip it faster and save some time. So now we're going back to the old ruins. Your minimap will show where you've traveled. Again, this is always a fixed direction. M will get you to your base level map. The waypoints in this game aren't totally necessary. So I'll just equip these pants again.
What happened to your father?
We're going to go to this hut, and most times there will be a little marker, but for some things there won't be. And it won't be particularly obvious, which is just how the game is. So I see some gold, I need to kill all these zombies. They were highlighted. I'm going to talk to Leah again. Quick skip. I've leveled, and now I can see that these boots aren't going to do me any more damage, so I can just toss them. To me, that's a garbage item. And then I would hop out and then continue on my straight path. So navigating Act 1 is pretty linear. The first part is going to be a lot of fixed paths until you get into the cathedral, where we can find one of our skips. And I will want to look for Deckard Cain.
The star fell here.
So on the note of Cain, you'll notice that this button is locked, and that would otherwise be my town portal. but I won't get that until I save Kane. Pardon me, that's incorrect. I won't get that until later. I believe it's level 6 that's unlocked. It's unlocked at... Your town portals are unlimited, but you can't place them like D2 and just sort of walk away. You place it, you go back to town, you walk in it, and it disappears. Your town portal is a good shortcut in most cases to get back to town, especially when it tells you to use a waypoint. You can just hit your T key and it will get you back. Potions you don't really need to worry about because you start off with one and it's not really a problem because it's infinite anyway. You may run into wells like that, and again, we have an indicator. That's where Kane is. Now, if I was doing a level 70 run of this, I would have my town portal available. I could have dashed down here and saved all the time of walking down the stairs and killing all these guys, but since we're doing story mode on a new character, we have to kill everyone. These orbs on the floor, the red ones are health globes. They heal you for a percentage of life when you pick them up. The yellow one is called a Nephilim Glory Globe, and here it will show that you can move faster and unleash energy on your enemies. Health and power globes will magnify the intensity of this effect and extend the duration. So right now we can see it ticking down. But once I picked up a health globe, it stacked. So I'll talk to Kane. The globes here, every class has health, but between the classes your resource will differ. The monk has spirit, but the only different one is the demon hunter, which has 2 resources to manage. But again, I can just save that for another day since we're going to concentrate on monk right now. So we can see here that I don't have any particular thing that would increase my damage, and really sorry for the lag. So the next quest takes us to our first mini-boss of the game. I'll skip his dialogue and just walk. I'll go into the cellar. As a general habit, I tend to check my damage. I can see that I do 8.84. That damage is calculated firstly on my weapon, which doesn't do very much damage. Doesn't really matter which hand I put it on. My damage is going to be the same. It looks into a bunch of other stats that for these types of runs aren't that important, because again, all we want is high damage and that's it, because that's what will carry us through the whole thing. I'm going to do this particular part and then I'm going to exit and go back to my level 71 to help explain navigating the acts a little better, because it's going to take me way too long to get there otherwise. So you can even skip her dialogue with Q. I'm going to just punch. Because I had resource, I'll use my spender. And we've reached level 5. See, here we have something that will increase my damage, and because I can hold 2 weapons, hovering over it will show only my main hand comparison. However, this weapon could do a lot more damage than I think. And to compare it to the weapon on my other hand, I would hold Alt. And we can see that my damage is amplified much more by putting it there. I can auto-equip it too, and the lag is preventing anything meaningful from happening. Many apologies for that. So just reset my timer. Okay, good. So we see that my damage went up to 14. And now I'll put on these bracers. Okay, so that was a very high-level explanation of things. I'm going to exit, I'm going to delete this character, and then I'll get my level 70 monk code. Which is here. Sorry, this is taking a long time. Alright, we're loaded in. So, as I was saying before, you would have T for your town portal, your potion, your skills, and any of your buffs would appear over here. So if I have anything going on like Dashing Strike and a bonus from it, or a bonus from my passive skills, it'll show, and when it runs out, it disappears. I know there's a lot going on. Again, that's just because my character is max level, so don't pay attention to all this stuff. Again, this is really endgame content, and for story mode, we're just focused on our damage. So I'm just going to dive into navigating the axe, and in adventure mode, we can see the grand map. So here is what everything will look like once you're done Act 1. There are a few additional waypoints that don't show up. But the main towns are going to be Tristram in Act 1, the Hidden Camp in Act 2, 3 and 4 share the same town, and that's going to be Bastion's Keep. In Act 5, it will be the Enclave. Act 1, as I said, is pretty linear. You're going to start out in New Tristram. You're going to basically walk out, and you're going to hit the old ruins first. Then, as you can see, the little path will kind of show you where you're going to end up. So this will give you kind of an idea, because start off, you'll come out, you'll pass the old ruins, and then these are various places that you're just going to see as you go along in the story. And again, not all of them are always going to be there. So we have our bosses marked. They show up on this little icon. So we have the Skeleton King, we have the Spider Queen, and we have the Butcher. In order, like I said, Skeleton King first. He's always in the same spot, like I showed you earlier. A lot of the maps are just going to depend on what generates, so it's better for you to just run them and sort of see what you end up with. The more consistent ones are going to be Act 2 has a very clear direction to it. Act 1 also has a very clear direction. The cathedral levels, for example, you can always go right down. The highlands, again going from the bottom, it'll be south, north, courtyard, and then into the halls of agony. The old ruins, the cemetery, are going to be common waypoints. The drowned temple. You probably won't activate most of them yourself. They'll just sort of appear as the quests go on. Going to Act 2, there's a good demonstration I can give in terms of where you need to go. So the main town is up here. You'll be talking to various people and going to various positions. Technically, this is an open area where monsters can spawn, but in story mode that doesn't happen very much. It's just once. This is a champion pack. Bosses will be harder to fight, but they'll give you more experience. There will be an NPC out here called Ashira that you will be speaking to quite a lot. If I can find her. Guess not. Okay. Backpedaling on that point. Every person you need to speak to will have a little exclamation above their heads. The artisans that are here you don't need to really worry about. We have our blacksmith, the mystic, and the jeweler. They're all characters you're going to meet in the storyline, and they will explain their various purposes to you. So if we were in story mode, we would go out here. We would see the enchantress down this path. And we would go along here.
Feel the wrath of Yita.
There's another quest item. And let me see if I can do this a little better, actually. If I've completed story mode on this, and I hope I haven't reset the quest, then I'll be able to do a much better demo. Many apologies on that. Rip that. Rip. So if I go to settings and I go to campaign, okay, I must have ripped a run. Okay, so this is not bad. Any of these quests I can go to and choose. This is where you start. This is when you're talking to the captain. Legacy of Cain is obviously that. But going into Act 2, Shadow in the Desert. Yes, here is a good place. Actually, no, that one's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, here we go. So let's do this. The Road to Alcarnus quest is going to have a sort of direction theme to it, and I'll show you what I mean once I get in there. And this is just in the context of Act 2. Oops. Cross the Black Canyon Bridge. Ah, here's Ashira. She's going to be giving you a lot of quests. So I've opened my map. I don't know why anything's not showing. Probably because I'm on the start. Oh, I see what happened. It started me in town. So I'll go there. Skip all this.
Do that.
I don't like.
Okay. When I get to this part of the story, there should be the Enchantress here who will talk to me and ask me if I want her to follow me. And the direction in this particular part will always be down, primarily, up here, and you can get a little carried away with Dashing Strike, so we'll end up at that waypoint and pass it, then down,
I'm going to outcast.
talk to our quest guy, do our little mini quest here, skip the dialogue, again saving time.
Belial, the Lord of Lies, Magna. It matters not. You were dead the minute you killed King.
My attacks will kill those mobs.
Not a moment too soon.
And I can just dash out of there as I did, and then just sort of wait.
I must wait to use that ability. As Magda read.
Navigating Act 2 isn't that bad. I will want to go up from here and to the right. There's no other direction that this is going to be.
Cannot be done.
But the exit from here is going to be pretty small.
You can't leave us here.
I will free.
Back there we can see a pool of reflection, which will give me more experience, but I'm not worried about that. If I happen to run by one. There's a shrine. Again, I don't really mind it. And here's our boss.
It is not ready. The witch is dead. Rest easy, Decker.
So I'll go back out, because that's done now, and show you where I went. So see, we have a clear down, up, and around. Always the same. There are various other maps that are like that. And I'm just gonna hop out. Act 3 will have a section like that in... Act 3 will be very linear as well. I don't really need to go through that too much. There's going to be the quest line where you get to the Spider Queen after Gome, and Gome will end up in the Keep Depths, as I showed earlier, where I went to basically demonstrate the functionality of Dashing Strike. So what's going to have a very consistent feel to it is both of these bridges. This one's short and this one's extremely long. There will be some deviations in your path because you'll have to walk around some stuff. The crater, both towers, and in leading into the core is going to have a consistent flow. The maps will vary in the top levels, not so much in the last level. The keeps are going to be, like I showed you before, kind of tricky to navigate. One place you're never going to go in story mode is up here, Ruins of Sescheron. That's only an adventure mode thing. I'm not going to cover everything going on the screen again, just because we're in the context of a speedrun. Going into Act 4, it's going to be the shortest. The consistent bosses here are going to be, well, the only one is going to be Rakanoth, and Diablo you'll have to do some navigating to get to, but he's always off of this area. Lastly, we have Act 5. It's going to involve a lot of running around. You're going to end up in the Commons, the Heights, the Pandemonium Fortress, where the last boss is, and a real pain is going to be the Passage of Corvus. There's going to be a certain number of entrances to a cave, much like in D2, where there's the Tomb of Tal Rasha. You'll have to know the right symbol, and there's going to be guide stones. I choose to basically find all of them and then backtrack. You may choose to just pick a passage and go there. The waypoint in adventure mode is always on the right one. And I think that is about it for the story. Again, I mean, just adventure mode. Really, for the story, you'll need Dashing Strike. A very good rune to have for it is Way of the Falling Star, which gives you a movement speed bonus. I had Quicksilver for the purposes of my high level run. For passives, you'll get Fleet Footed, that's necessary, and Exalted Soul is going to help. You probably won't unlock a lot of the others. Because you'll probably be changing between single and dual wheel, Guardian's Path is not really going to be necessary. You probably won't get past about here or here in terms of what you unlock. Any punch is fine, but you do want the maximum mobility, and Dashing Strike will give you that. And I would say that's about it. Yeah. If there's any questions, feel free to ask me, send me a message, and I'll explain the level 70 runs in more detail and exactly what my monk is wearing. But until then, have fun. Do as many runs as you want, and if you're up to the challenge of the other classes, except with the exception of monk and wizard, then it's going to take a little longer, but it can be equally as satisfying. And until then, have a good night.